Welcome, everybody, to the U of L In Focus podcast. My name is Matt Lambert, and we are catching up with some very special alumni who made this university great and what it is today. And today we have a special guest. He is an award-winning journalist. He's covered sports for the Courier Journal, the USA Today, The Athletic, just to name a couple. He is the author of two books. I'm going to hold them up right here. They are Bags to Riches, How the New Orleans Saints and Their People in Their Hometown rose from the depths together, and also Peyton and Breeze, the men who built the most prolific offense in NFL history. But most importantly, he is a U of L grad, class of 1986. We welcome in Jeff Duncan. Jeff, thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Matt, for having me. Really excited about doing the podcast, talking about my career and also about the University of Louisville.
Thanks, man. We appreciate it. Well, you grew up here in Louisville. You went to Seneca High School, but your bond with the university kind of grew from an early age, and it had to do with your mom, right?
Correct. My mother worked in the university's medical center, and she worked at the rheumatology department. I can still have early memories of going down to U of L med school and, being with my mom in the office there as she worked in the med school. And look, it helped me get a free ride to college. I got free education at the University of Louisville. So that was also a nice benefit for university employees. But that was the early stages of my connection to the University of Louisville, going down to the medical school and, watching my mom work and meeting a lot of the doctors and nurses and staff members in that medical center, and kind of bonding with them on a lot of things that my mother was doing at her profession.
So you started getting read right about then?
Yeah. Look, and we grew up in a blue divided house, if you will. My father was a diehard University of Kentucky fan, and my older brother, Steve, my older brother still lives in Louisville, works at WHS TV. He's a diehard Kentucky fan. So my mother and I were kind of the Louisville side of the house, and my older brother and father were Kentucky. And so we had a lot of battle royales growing up there, but I chose to be an independent. You know, like when you're young and you kind of veer off. Some kids just show their individuality by, I don't know, getting their hair dyed or getting a tattoo or a piercing. I became a University of Louisville fan. That was the way I rebelled against my father.
That's great. That's great. You've been covering sports for more than 40 years, and we know that college lays the foundation for at least some part of your career. Tell me how U of L helped lay the foundation for you writing for now 4 decades now.
Well, my earliest memories of being like kind of a fan of sports was in 1974, 75, and old school U of L fans will remember this. I can still remember to this day, Matt, seeing a Sports Illustrated on the newsstand. There were actually newsstands back then, and seeing the cover, and it had all these different mascots. It was their college basketball season preview, 1974-75 college basketball season, and all the mascots. It was one of those covers that folded out, so you had to fold out to see. And there were all these different, the UCLA Bruin, the Kentucky Wildcat, the Tar Heel. And when you folded it out, they had a cardinal bird dunking on the basket, the cardinal bird mascot. And Louisville was their preseason number one. And, you're an impressionable young kid. I was 10 years old at the time, and we lived in Louisville. And I'm just thinking, why wouldn't we be Louisville fans? I mean, this is representing our city where I'm growing up, and they're number one in the country. And so that really made a strong impression on me. That team went to the Final Four, had a great run under Denny Crum. And back then, post civil rights era, America, that was a really impressionable time for a lot of people and a lot of my peers. It became cool to be a U of L fan. Denny Crum and his teams were cool. And so we started following Louisville ardently back then. And I think the thing, getting back to your original point of your question, was the passion of U of L fans and how the whole city rallied around Louisville basketball. That really gave me a strong sense of what sports can do in America, the sense of community, how it goes beyond just the sport itself. really it kind of unites people in a community. I certainly see it down here in New Orleans with the New Orleans Saints, which you're familiar with. And we see it up in Louisville. When you go to a sporting event, a U of L basketball game or a football game, all, races, creeds, religions are all in one stadium, united over one common cause. And I found that a fascinating way to get into my journalism career. I love sports so much. It was fun for me to be able to chronicle it on maybe a different way, in a different prism than normal sports writers would cover. That's kind of what I've carried throughout my career.
And did you write for the school paper, or I know you wrote for the Courier Journal later on?
Yeah.
But did you write for the paper?
Yeah, I was the co-sports editor along with my buddy Mark Coombs of the Cardinal, and got a lot of great training then. I remember back then it was all we could do to put out one newspaper a week. I remember we had a sign on the wall of the Cardinal that said, I may not know what heaven is like, but I do know what hell is. And hell, we're a daily, because we would have never gotten a daily newspaper out. It was all we could do to get one weekly out. But I have fond memories of that. And my early memories of going to see like Louisville pickup basketball games. That was a really cool thing. Working at the Cardinal, we were right near Crawford Gym on campus. And we would get done with our deadlines and were to watch the Louisville Cardinal basketball players play pickup games against the incoming recruits, and then the old NBA players, the players that were in the NBA at the time would come back to campus to work Denny Crum's camp, and you'd see these NBA players against the current Louisville players against the incoming. So he's kind of got the past, present, future all on one court at one time, just in pickup games, sitting there watching it. It was fascinating. I don't know if we'd ever see anything quite like that again, but those were great memories right there near the Cardinal.
I remember you telling me that it was like watching an all-star game, just in a simple little gym that's now they tore down, and they sold off bricks and all that kind of stuff. But it must have been something else. Now tell me, I've known you for a long time, and when we talk about the University of Louisville, even before I came to the University of Louisville, you are really proud of your school. Why is that bond so strong?
Well, I think I always identify, we all do to some degree, to identify with the underdog. And back then, early, in the 70s and 80s, Louisville was building their athletic program. I mean, my early memories, Matt, the team, they were in the Missouri Valley Conference. This is before they got to the Metro Conference. So they're just kind of a fledgling program trying to make a mark nationally. And Denny Crum brought that really the basketball program brought Louisville into kind of a national spotlight. Certainly it was a national program at times before that, but really on a national stage back then, Denny Crum did it. And we all look for something to feel proud about, right? In our hometowns. I mean, there's a little bit of provincialism. Louisville basketball kind of put us on the map in my view, allowed us to stand toe to toe with other cities. There was something to be proud of besides, say, the Kentucky Derby. That gave us a national spotlight. So when you're young and you're looking for those type of things, I mean, there's a phrase I use often about New Orleans that I think applies. There is a lot of similarities between Louisville and New Orleans, the French history, and obviously the fleur-de-lis, the symbol. And there's a French phrase called the esprit de cloche. It means the spirit of the clock tower. And it refers to villages in France, these small villages where you are basically beholden to your village. If you live within hearing distance of the clock tower, it's upon you to uphold the sanctity of the village and defend the village at all costs. That's kind of what I feel like U of L basketball did for me. We had this esprit de cloche. It gave us something to rally around to feel good about Louisville, and then it just grew from there. And to see that program grow and to get finally in the ACC, I think Tom Jurich and obviously the football program, Howard Schnellenberger coming there, those things, it was cool to see, and so I find kinship with other programs when I see like Texas Christian and the TCU in the national title game this past year, or what Florida State's done under Bobby Bowden building that football program. I have a kinship seeing those programs, develop, seeing Tulane this past year beat Southern California in the Cotton Bowl. And that's all from my early days at the University of Louisville.
I'll tell you, I never thought I'd hear you quote French, but I guess those trips to France, checking out the Tour de France have rubbed off on you a little bit. But
a little bit.
Let's everybody over here in Louisville. There, U of L sports fans are rabid. And if you turn on sports radio today, three things are just dominating the headlines. Number one is that yeah, you said that we didn't used to be a football school. It was primarily focused on hoops, but over the last 20 years, they've really built a formidable program. Had some great coaches. And your thoughts on having Jeff Brom, former NFL and U of L quarterback, coming back to take the head coaching job at his alma mater?
Look, I was excited about that. Obviously, very proud to see them hire University of Louisville alumnus to lead the program. I think it's a perfect fit. I met Jeff Brom. He came down here a couple of years to observe Saints training camp when Drew Brees was here. So there's a kinship, obviously, when he was at Purdue, with Drew Brees being a Purdue alum, and got to meet him. And I know what Drew thinks of Jeff Brom and what he did, the work he did at Purdue, elevating that program. And I think he's only going to do the same thing at the University of Louisville. And I think in this day and age, with how football really is driving everything in college athletics, it's important to have that program on a very high level the way it was. So I think Jeff Brom was the perfect fit to do that. And I could see why people are excited there. They play an exciting style of football under him. I see it every year covering the NFL, how many Purdue players end up in the NFL draft and are playing on Sundays now. And that's, a testament to his ability to recruit. And I think he's only going to do the same thing at Louisville.
On kind of a sore subject, U of L basketball has seen better days over the last 4 or 5 years. It's hit a dry patch. Can you just even comment on that, or what do you think it's going to take to turn the program around and get them back to national prominence like they're used to?
Well, the good news is, Matt, with the transfer portal and the way college basketball, some of the new legislation and rules with NIL, you can turn things around very quickly in college basketball. So I think Kenny Payne and his staff have an opportunity. I know they're in a very difficult conference in the ACC. It's pretty unforgiving, but in basketball, all it takes is a couple of players. It's different from football. It's not quite the numbers game. So if you can get just two elite players to believe in your program, and certainly Louisville with the resources they have at that program, I mean, it's always been one of the leaders in all of college basketball, if not the leader in revenue every year. They're in a tremendous conference. They have an incredible brand. It shouldn't take any time for that program to get back. I think that's a complete outlier anomaly. I mean, obviously they've had some things go wrong in the program, some black eyes there that they had to get corrected. But I think it's only going to keep going uphill from here.
And just talking about the future, you having covered sports for the better part of 4 decades, number one, have you ever seen anything as crazy as the massive realignment that's happened in the last 2 months? And number two, look into your magic crystal ball and tell us where U of L is going to land probably in 5 or 10 years.
Yeah, look, I'd like to have that answer. I've talked to a lot of my colleagues and sources in the college athletics business, and I'm not sure anybody quite knows the answer. It's a shifting landscape. I personally, think it's a sad indictment on college athletics when a program like Stanford University, which annually has probably the most successful and balanced athletic program in all of college sports, and it's trying to find a home. I think we've got to get some leadership and some direction in college athletics. Unfortunately, right now, money and television are driving the train, and I'm not sure that that's the best thing for college sports in the end. It might be good for a select few programs, but not for the greater good of college athletics. And I think the University of Louisville, with the resources they have, if you just look at the size of the athletic program, I think it would surprise people. I mean, I was actually on this trip recently out on a work trip talking to a colleague of mine, and the University of Louisville, the last 5 years, I think their average of their athletic program is larger than a bunch of the SEC schools, larger than Southern Cal. It's a big time athletic program. So, and it's a great rabid market, as you said. College athletics are huge in Louisville without really any dominant professional sports teams. Really, the University of Louisville is kind of the pro team in the market. So I think they're going to find themselves in a good home, especially now that I think they've got college football, kind of taken care of with Jeff Brom. I think they're only going to take off, and that's going to make them more attractive. It's all about branding right now. And right now, the University of Louisville, I think under Brom, will start building that brand again, the way it was with Lamar Jackson.
Mm-hmm.
And I think somebody's going to latch on to them. I have no doubt they're going to end up in this next tier, this higher tier that we're seeing. I just don't know exactly where it's going to be.
Do you think they stay in the ACC, or do they move to the Big Ten or the SEC?
I think the ACC is going to stay together. I do. I mean, I think at some point, though, they're going to end up with like 3 20-team conferences. So you're going to have like 60 elite schools, and they're going to be in that 60. It's just a matter of whether it's the ACC or they merge with the Big 12. I don't think anybody quite knows how the landscape's going to shift, but they're going to be a part of that down the road. And look, it's all driven by money and television, and certainly University of Louisville belongs in that elite group for all the different reasons we talked about.
Okay. All right. Well, that's fair enough. Now, you are a columnist for the Times-Picayune in New Orleans, and you've got your hands full with the NBA and the NFL there, but you also found time to write 2 books so far on as I mentioned earlier, Bags to Riches, basically talking about their post-Katrina rise, the Saints, and how they kind of pulled the city and the city pulled them along to get out of that quagmire. And Peyton and Breeze about to the future Hall of Fame inductees who kind of revolutionized part of the game. And you're not done. So what else you got coming on in the future?
Well, thanks for the opportunity to give a shameless plug here, self-promotion. I'll gladly take the platform. No, look, you know this story from your roots in New Orleans, but being in the position I'm in, I've had an opportunity to work on a lot of great projects. I've covered the Saints for over 2 decades now, and covered the NFL for a long time. And I've really never come across a story like this. Steve Gleason is a former New Orleans Saints kind of cult hero, had one of the greatest plays in NFL history, much less Saints history. There's a statue, a 10-foot bronze statue of Steve Gleason outside the Superdome to this day, commemorating that play. And Steve, unfortunately, in 2011 was diagnosed with ALS, and he's been fighting and surviving and thriving and living with the disease ever since. It's a pretty extraordinary story, and I'm working on his memoir right now. He and myself and his wife, Michelle, literally every day trying to make this deadline here we got coming up in about a month to get the book out in the spring. And it's not a book about ALS, Matt. It's not a book about football. Of course, those things are in there. This is a book about life. And I think readers and anybody watching this will appreciate the life lessons you can learn from someone like Steve Gleason. It certainly goes beyond anything I've experienced in my career. And I'm just grateful and honored to get a chance to work on this book, because it's been an extraordinary project.
Well, he's a great guy. It's a unbelievable story, and I know that he wouldn't entrust it to anybody but you, because you've been around him since he got diagnosed, and it just it really touches a lot of us in the sports world to see somebody who is so athletic, had so much promise, and is now fighting. And he's not going to win his battle against the disease, but he is showing what it takes to get through it in the best way possible, and in the most dignified way possible. So good luck on that. And thanks once again, Jeff, for taking a couple of minutes out of your busy schedule. I know you just got back from Los Angeles covering preseason football, so we appreciate the time.
No, it's my privilege to be on, and go Cardinals, man.
Go Cards.
Yeah, good things ahead for the Cardinals.
All right, thanks. Jeff Duncan, sports columnist for the Times-Picayune in New Orleans. And if you know anybody who would like to be in the spotlight, you can contact us at the Alumni office at 502-852-6186, or you can email alumni@louisville.edu. Until next time, I'm Matt Lambert. This is Jeff Duncan. Go Cards.